Welcome to the Business Finance Matters podcast. Over the next 15 minutes, we're going to tackle some of the topics that we get asked about on a regular basis so you business owners can get a better understanding of what it is that you're probably dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Let's get on with it.
Well, David, here we are. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to be back in the chair again, although I swear I'm either getting bigger or my chair's getting smaller.
Mate, you can't get much bigger. You're enormous. You're like a giant bear. Anyway, let's get to it. So, you're a practitioner in the business loans market, do it for day-to-day living, and I want to talk about, and there's going to be a flip side to this, what some of the best practices that you see in the market, and obviously the flip side is what are some of the things that aren't quite so good. So talk me through what you consider, one of the best things that you think that you bring in your day-to-day job when you're looking at someone who's thinking of borrowing some money.
Well, best practice is a word used in a lot of industries, isn't it? In terms of how do things get done? Do they get done to the best possible standards and levels and everything else that people look for in life? And I think our industry is one that's probably an area which has an awful lot of importance to it. So best practice being, in layman's terms, is that if we are looking at businesses that are looking to gain access to some kind of finance, there's a process in which we follow, and that process is driven by ultimately a best practice. From the beginning of that best practice, it's obviously getting to know who the business owners are, so we get into the skin of the business, we understand what the business is all about, then there's lots of different steps that follow thereafter.
So would you say then that to start with, you're putting the customer's interest first? Is that important?
Always. Again, in other industries the same. Best practice is generally making sure that the customer or the individual or whoever it is that's going through this process is the best outcome is happening for them.
So you start off with a fact find by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
What's the business doing? Who's running the business? Who's behind? What's their experience?
Exactly.
You're sort of building a picture, aren't you? You're building up
because you have to.
Yeah.
You have to build that picture because every business is different. Every business owner is different. We have to get a feel for what the business is all about and where it's come from, where it's going to.
So this is all happening long before any application is made, isn't it? You really are quite forensic in that.
Yeah, and we could argue amongst all the people that we speak about and that write into the show about best practice, but for me, there is a best practice in our industry.
Yeah.
And that's not applying directly to a lender. That's not applying to a faceless broker, should we call them.
Yeah.
That's going through a professional business finance professional. So to use the professional word so many times there.
Well, you're professional, mate.
I try to be professional. But the point I'm making is that they will have a clear, as I said a minute ago, a clear process of where we start to make sure that when we get to the end of that, it's been done for the best outcome for that business.
That's good because I think also, I mean, you could parallel lending in the consumer market, i.e. you as an individual, me as an individual applying for a loan or whatever. You can commoditize that fairly easily, but businesses lending doesn't work that way, does it? Every business is different. And I think I know what you do. You know that it's not a one size fits all.
Never.
And sometimes best practice is to guide the customer to say, well, hold on a minute. There's an underlying issue here. You think you want to borrow £50,000 for whatever, but hold on 1 second. We've got to look a little bit further into this and understand,
absolutely
what really has brought this situation about.
So maybe we talk about where best practice isn't being undertaken. And we see, again, from the information we get back from the members, we see it happening a lot in the market space. Loan stacking we've spoken about.
Yeah.
To the cows come home.
Yeah.
But you could argue that is that best practice that the lenders knowingly are lending to businesses that have already got a number of other debt type products already in there. Is that best practice to lend again?
Yeah.
And you could also argue that the business finance professional, people like me, is it best practice for me to then go and get another facility on top of something that they've
Well,
already struggling to pay?
It's interesting because you reminded me when we did that, when we recorded that episode, one thing that resonated with me was that you quite rightly pointed out that short-term lending has its place.
Absolutely.
But it's only one part of the play, if you like. You know, what's the exit route? A bit like, I suppose, like a bridging loan, you know, isn't it? I think that's how short-term lending should be treated.
Yeah.
You know, there's a defined exit out of here, and that defined exit isn't half a dozen more loans, is it?
No, the exit is one thing, the affordability is another.
Yeah.
You know, the best fit we go on about time to time is another. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm dealing with businesses at the moment where I'm making it very clear to them that, you know, if we take on this, am I confident that there is an affordability? And of course, the lender will want the same information.
Yeah.
So it's not going to do my business any good if I go to a lender with an application which clearly doesn't tick the affordability boxes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be doing that beforehand. And I've got a case on at the moment where they have proven to me that the funding that's going to go into the business shortly is going to accelerate their growth through a very, very busy summer season that they've got coming up.
Okay.
And they're in the food and drink game. So I can see, okay, right here, right now, because it's a bit seasonal, there's an affordability challenge, and there's some HMRC bits going on in the background as well. But I am comfortable now, having seen the contracts they've got in place, the revenue that they're going to generate from these contracts, that this additional, because they have already got some debt, will be the best fit, and a best practice has been undertaken here to ensure that both the lender and the business owner is very clear on the product and how it's going to service the business in a positive effect.
So that brings up another area. I think you've told me in the past, you've not always, when you've met a business, carried them through to making an application. Sometimes you've guided them to take a personal loan or stop or whatever. So you're not all. It's not all about just bang bang bang, is it?
No. But again, we have seen that. We have seen those codes, or whatever you want to call them, best practice ways of working broken, because we have seen businesses that, for whatever reason, and we're not pointing sticks at anyone, but for whatever reason, they've got a facility, and it was the worst decision that they could have made.
And it's that speed again, isn't it? That
speed has a role to play.
You know, it's this rush to get things done as quickly as possible. And it's funny, you know, I saw an article on LinkedIn the other day, and a lender was, you know, praising itself about how quickly they turned around some transaction. You sort of think, well, hold on a minute, you know, we're not playing games here. This is serious business. You know, taking debt is got to be treated, you know, in the right way. And you can't rush it.
Well, lender marketing behaviour, I think, is a podcast we've got coming up in the near future, but that's another topic to talk about. That also falls under that best practice.
Yeah.
You know, is it best practice for a lender to go out and say, get money now, by tomorrow, at this rate? I mean, we could go on for hours on that. That's another podcast. But if I go back to best practice again, for example, I've seen situations where businesses have come to me, and I know full well that there's a number of options we can look at. So instead of going to one lender, and this is probably going back a little bit to the loan stacking, because there are situations where 2 or 3 different types of products will be best fit and it will be best practice. But for example, you know, not many people know that there are British Business Bank facilities, for example, for directors. Now, when I'm talking to companies, first thing I'm thinking, and part of my process is, does this business owner qualify for one of these 25k British Business Bank direct to loan? And it's a lovely facility to have at that cost to get that business potentially. And if there's, as I said, we said in other podcasts, if there's 3 directors, well, that's 75k we can get access to, very cheap money. And might that be a much better fit than going to some of the other lenders that are going to be charging in excess of 10, 15%, say, plus the fees on top. We've spoken about fees in the past. So the best practice is trying to make sure that there is a clear pathway of how we work with that business from the very beginning, and obviously to the very end when the facility is.
And do you know what, Dave? You know, I know you run a good ship, and I know you run a tight ship. with your business, and our members do the same. But what really frustrates me, you mentioned about the British Business Bank. How many business owners do you think, let's say 5 million SME business out there, how many of them do you think have even heard of the British Business Bank? I mean, the signposting in this country, I'm going to say it, is dreadful. It's absolutely appalling. And I think, you said we were going to talk about these online lenders. They're just, carving a swathe through, huge numbers of businesses, not for one moment even sitting back considering whether it's the right solution for that business.
Yeah. And I think we've said before, we're not here to lender bash, for want of a better word. Every lender that is out there.
No, Dave, we're not, but we have to point these things out to businesses. We have to make sure that they are vulnerable.
I agree.
And that's you're right. It's lender agnostic. We know who those lenders are. It's not our job to point them out, but it is the behaviour that is not good.
The best practice again, yeah. And this is why we keep saying don't go direct to lender.
Yeah.
Because that lender might appear to have something that's attractive.
Yeah.
We've spoken about that before on past podcasts. But is it the right fit? And therefore, when I give you an example of something that I've done just recently where we decided that we could raise, in this situation, very cheap money from the British Business Bank, which, yes, they had no idea about.
Yeah.
So that was one part of the financing process.
Yeah.
And we topped up the other requirement using a growth guarantee scheme.
Yeah.
So bringing in both of those products was perfect.
Yeah.
It was cheap. It was easy to gain access to in terms of what what it was we needed to do to make sure the lender was comfortable.
Yeah.
And you don't need me to tell you what the comments were back from that business. And I see members have the similar shared experiences where when you've gone through that process, that practice, that best way of working, guess what? The customer at the end of it saying, thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, blah, 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 blah.
We've had guests on, haven't we? We've had some of our colleagues guests on, and they've all said, without it's even prompting, Dave, Duncan, Beaky McIntich, if it wasn't for you, our business wouldn't be in the state it is now if we were even still trading. Yeah,
and if any business owners watching this, which I'm sure there are many, that process of gaining access to finance in this country, compared to probably any other country in the world right now, is just making sure that the right footsteps or the right pathway is followed to ensure that best practices are undertaken, number one, and to make sure that the best fit finance is provided based on the professional guidance from people like us and from myself and the Guild.
And I'll tell you something I've seen and I like, and I think this is part of the whole journey. I know you do it. I know other Guild members do it. They don't just go in, arrange the finance and go away and never be heard again. It's like that. You've almost got an ongoing partnership with the business, haven't you? You keep in touch. You do a regular review. Or you've got other things to do that have been planned, and when you've got to do them. So you're with them for the journey, really, aren't you?
Yeah, and I guess you could say that's all part of the best practice that we're talking about today.
Sure.
There's the front end, which is just as important, but also the journey that goes on, because that business will ultimately, at some point, want some other guidance or need some more finance. The
key, I think, for you, and as I say, other members, is that the customer must come first. But that's not always the case out there, is there? I mean,
no.
I think we were talking about it earlier, sometimes the broker or the intermediary, doesn't really care, does he or she? And how would that manifest itself? What do you see?
Well, again,
going on out there?
It's what we, I guess, in layman's terms, called the low-hanging fruit, where you've got business owners. We always use that analogy of them lying in bed, which brings certain pictures to my mind. But anyway, the point being is that they are thinking about something to do with whether it's cash flow, whether it's working capital. And we know how the phones are working. These days, we know how gaining access to most information can come quite readily from ChatGPT nowadays and internet. And some of the methods, should we say, that are being used by some brokers and lenders, is going to create a feeling of gaining access to finance quickly and maybe not following the route that we're trying to talk about today.
This is interesting because I think, most industries have bad actors, don't they? Not everybody wears a white hat. No. Not everybody wears a black and white hoop top that you can see they're up to no good, and it's sometimes, I think what I hear a lot from our members is that, why didn't you call me 6 months ago? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Why have you left it so long? And, I think we've said it before, finance is not a particularly interesting subject. It's not something people like freely talking about, business owners. It's often, I think, used rightly, it's essential. Used wrongly, at worst, it could knock a business out.
Absolutely.
And, I'm conscious, Dave, and we keep talking about it, SME business owners are not financial experts. They understand cash flow, they understand budgeting, they understand many of the aspects, but they don't know the market as you know it,
No.
And I think, we owe it as a guild that we have to be clear, open, transparent, trustworthy. All these aren't just, odd words I'm using here.
They're not sales pitches, are they? They're just basic, general common sense that gaining access to anything these days, typically, we use the IFA analogy, a comparison quite a bit. Why would you go straight to a bank to get your mortgage? Why would you go straight to an investment company, whatever it is? Go for an IFA. They know the market. They'll look after you. And we're trying to mirror exactly the same model here.
And that's an education as well, isn't it? Because, you're an intermediary. There's a clue in the title. The inference is, it's going to cost more money, isn't it? Well, not necessarily. In actual fact, you might get the better product, the right product, rather than any old product. And that's the value of what you guys and girls bring to the guild. So on that, bfpguild.org, obviously.
Yep.
What is the email address?
The email address, I believe, is podcast.
Oh, yeah.
At BFP. No, BFF. No. Got to do it. I've forgotten.
The podcast, Dave, email address is podcast@bfpguild.org. Learn it, will you, mate? It's only about 10 lessons.
Embarrassed now.
Yeah, well, so you should be. Good to see you. Have a good rest of your day. And
thank you. And you.
I will catch you soon.
Yeah, goodbye from you.
All right. You still feeling bigger than ever?
Keep that for those shows.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us on this podcast. We hope it was useful. Please share, please subscribe so we can share this content to as many business owners as we possibly can. And if there was anything we haven't covered in this particular episode, then please let us know. Drop us a line. We'll be happy to talk about it in future episodes. Thanks again.